Hello and welcome to the Planner Pals podcast, a podcast hosted by two true planner pals. My name is Mark, and I go by Mark Your Pages.
And I'm Jess or Jessica, and today we're going to be talking about something that I feel like we've talked about a lot. We've skirted around it a lot in previous episodes and never actually done an episode on it. But this is if you have a planner that you started using, you were really enthusiastic, you got into it, you're like, yeah, this is going to change my life, it's going to do XYZ for me, it's going to be great. And then you got maybe like a couple weeks, couple months, couple days into it and just completely fell off with it. What do we do with that planner now as it's half used, or maybe even just like lightly used? Now, we're going to give you a bunch of different ideas of what you could do with it and also how you can kind of logistically go about that. But, Mark, have you ever had a planner that you kind of like started with, used a little bit, and then had to kind of like change or repurpose?
I literally have an entire shelf of those books that I've repurposed over and over again. Yeah, I think we all have this. I have like a bit of a mixture from going to like a lot of creative conferences and stuff like that. You know, those people are always throwing out like crappy notebooks and stuff like that. And I still hold on to them because I have a problem. And then, just the notebooks we've collected over time that I'm like, oh, I'm going to use it for this. Like I have this one traveler's notebook. No lie, Jess, I've tried three different versions of things to try to make it into because I was like, I'm going to use a traveler's journal now. And I love this size. And I wrote like 2 days worth of like journaling. And then I was like, no. I was like, now you're a swatch journal. And then I like used 2 or 3 pages. And then I haven't used it since because I've used other things. So that's just one example. But I think we've all been here. We've all tried it. Luckily, I would say probably 98% of my journals are all blank journals, dot grid, lined, whatever it is. I did try one dated journal one time, and it has also been reused.
Yeah, no, I do find that repurposing a notebook in particular is usually easier than repurposing a pre-printed planner, typically because, it's a blank notebook. You can kind of turn it into whatever you want very easily. Whereas a pre-printed planner, pre-dated planner in particular, that can be a little bit more challenging, but that doesn't mean we can't do it. There are still possibilities. I know previously I have had plenty of notebooks that have kind of, just decided, whatever it was that I was using it for initially, decided it wasn't going to do that anymore. That wasn't its purpose to fill. That wasn't its destiny. Its destiny was to become something completely different, usually some kind of like research book or something like that. But in terms of like the logistics of this, right? Because repurposing a planner, it's all good and well to say, like, oh yeah, just flip to the next page and get started. And for some people, that works really well and they can totally do that, and that's fine. Whereas for others, like myself, we just need to do a couple of little admin pieces before we're okay with turning that notebook or planner into a different thing. For me, oftentimes I will try and remove any of the pages that I've already dedicated to that first initial use, mainly because I just like that idea of like the fresh start feeling, like, turn to the first page. It is the actual official use of the notebook. It's not just some kind of like artifact of things that came before or whatnot. But obviously, this can sometimes have some negative effects on the planner integrity depending on what kind of planner you're using. So if you're using something like a ring bound or like a coil bound kind of planner, that one is usually the easiest to remove pages from. You just very carefully cut the pages out. You can like sometimes even rip them out depending on the thickness of the paper and the strength of the coil. That's really nice because then it's like complete fresh start, no even like evidence that you were using it for something else previously. It's just like ready to go. Whereas with something like a bound notebook, then you can stick things over it, depending on how many pages you've used. You could just like, tape the pages together or something like that. Oftentimes, though, I will actually just cut the pages out of the notebook because I'm okay with doing that. I know some people are not. I already know you're just like no, Jessica, what are you doing? You can't do that.
Say, I can't even cut a page to make like a Dutch door, right? Like, I certainly can never go to my notebook with like a blade or anything and just kind of pull them out. I mean, I have done it before with really bad notebooks, and they just like fall apart. I think the biggest thing for me with cutting out pages also is then your book like doesn't like kind of close the right way. Like it knows that it's missing pages, it's slightly handicapped. It feels kind of that way. Honestly, it looks that way, if I'm being honest with you when you do it. So like I'm a really big fan of just like binder clips. I've got like this little Esterbrook clip that I've been using inside of my other journals that I have for like a swatch journal and some my pen and ink journals journal and stuff like that, because I did kind of a little research and development to kind of figure out what the pages looked like beforehand. But then I didn't like any of those, and I found how I wanted to do it. But that was like 4 or 5 pages in, and for a really long time, I was like looking at it, and I was like, do I glue it? Like, do I almost thought about ripping it out, but I was like, no, that'll just make it look terrible. So this little clip has been super helpful because I just kind of pop it on the front of the little notebook, but it's super helpful. It just kind of totally kind of just does away with any of the worry. It keeps it, you just kind of open your page right to where it is. And that's been like my go-to way of doing it. Gluing I have tried, but then I just feel like there's like a lot of glue and not perfect. So I'm a clip guy 100% when it comes to this.
No, very fair. I do think that, if you've used a decent chunk of the notebook or the planner already, and it is one that you can't realistically take those pages out safely or in a way that still keeps the book looking well formed, then having a clip, like you said, that can really help. But what I personally prefer is some kind of like journal elastic, kind of like the ones that are already pre stitched into a lot of notebooks. You can actually buy separate ones or like kind of, I don't know, external ones, and I will just put that around the section of pages that I don't want to see anymore. You can actually use this in a bunch of other ways as well. Like I have previously used it in notebooks where I wasn't actually repurposing them, but it was a notebook that I was using year upon year, and I just wanted to very easily turn to the current year rather than all the previous years. So I'd bundle all of those kind of, past used pages in one kind of section so that when I opened the notebook up, I'm turning exactly to where I need to be. It's kind of like a navigation tool, but you can also use it for repurposing notebooks.
Yeah, I've been doing that in a number of notebooks too recently, especially when the elastic band is already in, because I feel like for me so often, and maybe it's different now that I'm working remote and I'm just home a lot and I'm not really traveling with my notebook a lot. Like closing my notebook with the elastic feels like kind of silly because the whole point for me is like it's a closure, it's to hold it closed. But if I'm not going anywhere or doing anything, like what's really the point? So I've done that inside of a few notebooks where I'm just like, oh, I'll just kind of put the elastic for where my page is. So I just open right to it. I find it to be a lot more easier than the page ribbons. I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm having a lot of issue with my page ribbons recently where like they're falling out. That's something that happens. I'm not even like manhandling this thing. I'm just like, oh, daintily. And it's like, oh, now it's a streamer. But also just, just sometimes you forget to use them. I'm like, they're just in the way. I'm not going to tear them out because sometimes they fall out by themselves. But I'm just like, so this is a really nice way. Just like it's a hard open is how I like to refer to it.
I very much agree. I usually don't use the page ribbons, but I swear it is the one notebook where the page ribbons were actually useful that they fell out of. One of them, I accidentally, I don't know, I was sitting on the couch using my notebook and I crossed my legs and my boot got caught on the ribbon and just like yanked it out. And the other one's just like, well, now I'm lonely, and just like fell out by itself. I'm like, excuse me, that was necessary for the navigation in my notebook, but good navigation tool using an elastic. Absolutely love it. Who needs an index when you have an elastic?
Me, I need an index because my little elastics only hold one page and I have multiple.
Fine, I'll allow it. But if you are going to cut your pages out of your notebook, what I would definitely recommend is cut carefully. For one thing, you don't want to compromise the binding of your notebook. That isn't really the vibe. But also, what I will sometimes do is instead of cutting out individual pages, if I've used a decent chunk, I will cut out like full bundles of pages or signatures in the notebook because I can more safely remove those as a whole than an individual page. Because if you cut away one page, given the fact that for most of the notebooks I use and possibly the ones you use as well, like it's one kind of like larger sheet that has been folded in half. And so if you only cut away one page, you're actually cutting away half of a sheet, and the other one is like way less secure now. So if you go and put all of your plans in there and you decorate and you do all these things, and then it doesn't have its buddy to actually hold it in place, it's just falls out of the notebook. You're like, cool, didn't want that.
Or you just use a binder clip and you're good to go.
Also valid.
Well, let's go ahead and get into our topic today of how we are using these notebooks after we have properly done. I love the administrative activities to get it to where it needs to be. It's also a little fun. It's like recustomizing your journal a little bit. One of the things that I've been doing with a lot of mine, I have a lot of different versions of this that I've done. As you know, I'm a big fan of fountain pens and a big fan of fountain pen ink. Imagine that. So something I like to do is swatch said things because I love inks and I love the way they look, and I definitely like collections of things. And while I have a digital version of this already handled for me in Airtable, I also just really like to also have, a swatch. Like I have one right here, for instance, because I love doing them. It's just something nice and easy to do. So with that notebook, it's a great way to reuse it for a few reasons. I would say one, because I feel like also if you're reusing a notebook, maybe you're not as worried about pages, like how many pages you're using. Because in theory, not to throw you off here, but you've kind of already, wasted a notebook, but now you're reusing it. So it's totally okay, right? So skipping a few pages, doing whatever is totally fine. And so I say this because, especially when you're doing fountain pen ink swatches, a lot of the time that ink will bleed or start to like kind of go through those pages. So sometimes you have that. And then, of course, you don't want to write on the other side of that page because it's bled through, right? And looks great, but you don't want to use it. So being able to like do that and feel very comfortable about it is great. So a lot of the times what I'm doing is I'm just putting the ink swatch and just writing what it is there. A lot of the times I have a few journals where I do this as well, where I'm kind of chronicling my ink and my pen pairing for the amount of time. So some people, not me, because I have so many pens and ink, I literally use a different pen and ink every single week. If you're not like me, a lot of times people will do this just to know what pens they have and what ink is in there, because you can have a pen on your desk with ink for months, and you sometimes forget maybe what's inside of there because it's not easy to do. You can pop open a notebook that you have and just kind of chronicle through with it. I also love this because it's nice to just see what a pen writes with. So later on, if you're picking that pen up again, or you're kind of just looking through the notebook, it's a really great way. It's like a collection page in a way, but like it's not based off of any type of real goal, I guess. Like you're not trying to lose weight or drink more water or do these like trackers that like that you're probably not going to follow through on. This is just a tracker that just feels really good. It's a fantastic use of a notebook that maybe didn't make it all the way.
Cool part about turning a notebook into a swatch journal, or even like a pre-printed planner in particular into a swatch journal, or swatch book I suppose is what we would call it, is that in a pre-printed one you usually have little boxes that are already sectioned out. I'm kind of thinking like if you had a monthly calendar and you turn it into a like color of the day kind of thing. So if you have quite an extensive ink collection or extensive pen collection, then it's like, oh, this is the one I'm really drawn to today, and you can kind of really have some fun with it. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, all the Hobonichi people out there know exactly what we're talking about because that is the 1% of notebook that I have that was predated, that I did not use all the way, and it became exactly that. It's not the one that I use, but it's definitely like a fun place to experiment. It's great because the paper is very fun and most of the time very fountain pen friendly, but that paper does ghost as well, right? So you can usually see what's written on the back of it, but it's not ruined by any sense of the word, right? But it does a really great job of handling the ink. So yeah, it is a really fun way to just use a different notebook that you didn't think you might have used again. And maybe you'll find yourself a new hobby in fountain pens and inks. You can come join me.
Oh, definitely. And I think also the point that you made there about the fact that the bleeding and ghosting isn't really as much of a problem. It's kind of nice because given that it has already been partially used, this planner or notebook or whatnot, the ghosting and the bleeding that happens with that almost helps you use it up faster, which it may not necessarily be the goal, but it can be something that makes you feel better about getting use out of it, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I am like, I don't even care. After I've like kind of discontinued the use of something, I pick it back up. I'm just like, oh, page messed up, whatever, next page. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Oh, didn't like the way this turned out, next page. It just, I don't know what is so freeing about the fact that I was like, oh, I gave up on this journal or I'm not going to use it all the way. So I pick it back up and I'm like, you're a scratch pad. It doesn't matter. It's a wonderful feeling. I mean, at least I'm like, oh, it's getting used now. At least it's not wasting away. And that makes me feel better.
Yeah, I think that that's also one of, the ideas that I have for these kind of like, partially used notebooks is literally just turning them into scribble books. Because at the end of the day, the kind of feelings that surround a partially used notebook for me are usually guilt. Like, oh, you got this thing and you thought you were going to use it and you didn't even use it. And, can really start to spiral down into some kind of like self-beration. Like, you suck, you didn't use your planner, you can't commit to anything, wah wah. I'm like, okay, no, let's not do that. Instead, let's go and let this planner or this notebook fulfill some kind of destiny or some kind of purpose for me. And oftentimes, if I turn it into a scribble book, one, the pressure's already been taken off because I started using it. That didn't actually work out, and now the journal or notebook has been, quote, soiled. So if I put scribbly notes in there, it doesn't really matter. Whereas if I'm trying to do scribbly notes in something like my everyday planner, which I do, consistently use and get very precious about, I don't want to put scribbly notes in here because I'm a persnickety biscuit. Whereas if I put it in something that's already been half used, partially used, or whatnot, and I'm not going to keep using it for that thing anymore, I don't want to keep it for that purpose anymore, at least the paper in there can still have a use. Because I personally think that like used is better than unused, even if it's not perfectly used, quote, quote.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have a bin over here that I just have like scrap paper on. So if I'm using like I'm writing something and I don't use all of it, I'll just tear it out and throw it down there. I mean, even in this case too, if you wanted to go down that route, it's kind of similar a little bit of like what you talked about. If you don't want to try to do surgery on your notebook, you could just honestly just take it apart and like you said, kind of undo those signatures, and then you just have kind of this, small signatures that you could use however you want to. Like you could really deconstruct the whole thing. I am 100% with you. Like it is better to use the paper than for it to go to waste. So who cares what it looks like? Because again, your its purpose is not to have a purpose. Therefore, it doesn't need to be for anything specific. And like I said, it's like this very like freeing moment. And then you're just like, "Well, crap! I just tore apart a notebook. Am I going to jail?"
Yeah, definitely. You're going to plan a prison. That's how it works. But I do think that, that kind of like freedom that you get with, taking something and turning it into an intentionally scribbly, messy kind of place can just be very helpful for a lot of us, especially if you have, some perfectionistic tendencies around your planners or whatnot. It's almost like you already made a quote mistake in the planner, in that you started using it in one way and decided that that way wasn't actually the way you wanted to use it, or you weren't going to keep up with it or whatever else. It means that that one has already been like broken in a way. It's already kind of got some space in there that's filled in a way that you don't really want to continue with, so you can keep using it in a more kind of like free form, really chill kind of way. And the nice part about turning it into a scribble book is that if it's pre-printed, it doesn't matter. Like a lot of the pre-printed notebooks and planners we have will have larger sections that you can just write checklists in. So just like tear that part of the page off, use it for a grocery list, and then when you're done, put it in the recycling. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it is a great thing about it. Or even with that, you make a great point about a lot of those predated ones too. A lot of them are like vertical setups. Like put it into your paper cutter and just cut those down in those slips, right? Like there's so many different ways you can do that. And I feel like with a lot of those like happy planners and stuff too, people are buying those sticker kits and they end up like going over top of a lot of those days of the week too. Like I feel it's like almost like retrofitting a dated journal into a non-dated journal. Sometimes like I see some of those kits, I was like, wait a second, you're covering up what's already there. This doesn't make any sense. But it is once you kind of let go of that, you're just like, yeah, I'll make it whatever I want. Doesn't matter if it has a different date on it. Like I'm not using it for that anymore. It is just it is. I don't know. I don't keep saying it's freeing, but it is. It's like this very weird like emotion connection you have with something, and then suddenly you're like, I'm not held or bound to you anymore.
I like your point about the stickers as well, because that's kind of like a bonus tip and aside or whatnot, is that if you have a dated planner and you skip a month or whatever else and such, or maybe even just like skip the rest of the year, you can totally just redate it by putting different date stickers over the top of it. If you have a particular thing that you started using it for, the thing I'm thinking here, and I swear it's just because everybody in my life is getting pregnant right now, if you had some kind of like, feminine health or like menstrual health journal or whatnot, and then just like cool, got pregnant, don't need it right now, but you want to pick it back up in like 9 months to a year's time or whatnot, you can just redate the thing and use it for that, or like for any other use that you have over a certain time frame or whatnot. This is just the one that's top of mind because like I swear literally everybody I know is getting pregnant.
Hey, something's on the water.
Sus, I ain't drinking no water no more. Like,
Diet Coke only.
that's right, stay safe out there.
Well, I'll go into my next idea because this is something I've been on this like bender about recently. I love creating stamp journals now. I know that we've talked about junk journals and things like that. I've just accepted that it's just called a stamp journal now because enough people were like, well, that's not made out of junk. Really, it's paper. But I'm allowed to do whatever the hell I want to do. So, something that I've been doing is using my little stamp punch and I've been stamping out everything. Sometimes it is junk. Sometimes it is paper packs that have been holding on to literally for years. I just pulled out one of the old Archer and Olive ones from like 5 subscription boxes ago. And I was like, thank goodness I held on to this, or else what would I have used? It's just so fun to do. I've been really enjoying the stamp journaling strictly as just a creative outlet. I was doing some the other day and I didn't have my camera or tripod or anything recording me. And I was like, this feels really weird because I'm so used to creating content when I'm doing it to give ideas. But I was like, no, Mark, like you're just hanging out outside with your family. Like, let's just have fun. And I did still take pictures of it and post it because I have to. It's in me. But it was just so fun just to do. And I've gotten so much use out of like the pocket journals that I had from Archer and Olive. I have so many of those from the past. I was like, I don't know what to do with these. Now I have, I don't know, probably three different like stamp journals that I've been creating because I have that one because like the 1 inch little stamp punch outs fit perfectly nine to one of those little pocket pages, perfection, right? I also have one in like a much larger one that I have, which is just like moleskin lined notebooks that again I would never really use, and I was like, I have to find a use for these somehow. And so like that was another great way for me to kind of use that. Because I have a lot of lined paper that I just don't ever, I will never use. Like it's just not me. I'm so in love with dot grid that it's like a weird obsession where I'm like, ew, lined paper, no. But now I'm like, oh yeah, I can fit these in here. I can try different sizes. I can do different things. And it's been really awesome. And just from again, from a creative standpoint, it's the way to go. So it's just like one of those things where it's like, nope, not using this journal anymore. All right, I'm gonna go and punch out some stamps and stick them in here for creative purposes only. It's great.
I know I was supposed to be listening, but I was literally just sitting here thinking, like, okay, if we're not going to call it a junk journal, but we might call it a stamp journal, we could always just call it like a stunk journal.
What are you talking? That sounds like a skunk lives inside of my journal. It's not a stink. It might be made with junk sometimes, but it doesn't stink. What about a scrimp journal?
I guess, okay, scrimp journal, scramp journal, because then it's like scrap, stamp, scramp.
Scrimps are little things you eat. They're seafood. Yeah, scrimp journal's fine. Scrimp journal, anything that we want to call it. The bottom line is that I'm going to be happy using my little journal, whatever I need to call it, to make myself happy because that's what it's all about, right? It's this idea of, finding something that you're enjoying, being creative, having fun, and the extra bonus that you're also at the same time using a notebook that gives a second life. Like that makes it even better. It makes it even more worth it. And again, it doesn't matter what you do inside of that notebook at the end of the day, as long as you're happy, as long as I'm happy with my scrimp.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that one of the ways that I've seen people use the stamp in particular in pre-printed notebooks is that they'll do like their stamp of the day type thing. So they'll find a stamp from like one, I don't know, flat piece of ephemera that they had from the day or something and stick it on. I'm thinking about monthly calendars here. I'm like really fixated on this idea of like how do we reuse a monthly calendar, but they'll like do that. I thought that would really cool.
Oh, it's absolutely. I mean, the people that are doing like junk journaling out of actual junk and paper, like there's like a few Instagram people that I follow that do that. I tried it one day. I was like, day one of stamp journaling. And then I was like, I don't want to do a series. Like, this isn't me. And I stopped doing it, but I still have done it on the side. But they're like punching out, like, I had ramen soup for lunch. And they're like punching out like the soup bowl and like the back of a cookie package and all of that. And like, I'm all about reusing and doing stuff like that. But I think I draw the line at food. But again, everyone to their own. I'll keep my own scramp journal for myself. Let's talk about some other ideas that we have for reusing our journals.
So this is kind of like coming off of your idea, I think, because your stamp journal, scramp journal, whatever we're calling it, I think that it's just a really cool form of creativity. And I think that the nice part about pre-printed planners in particular and repurposing them is that they are really excellent space for creativity because you have like predefined sections to work within. And sometimes creativity can be a little bit, like with the open-endedness of creativity. And it's like, okay, am I using like pens or pastels or paints or like whatever? Am I using like, just one color or a full rainbow or whatnot? There's a lot of decision making that goes into it and it can become very overwhelming very quickly. Whereas if you're just making, giving yourself some boundaries or some guidelines that can help make it a little more approachable. And I think that reusing a pre-printed planner in a kind of like constrained creativity kind of way can be a really nice in. So, thinking about the monthly structure or the monthly calendar where you have all of these pre-defined little boxes or whatnot, then it's like, okay, well, what kind of like very small creativity piece could I fit in here? Maybe I just like, fill this box with different line work. Maybe you do like a little Zentangle project, but instead of filling an entire page, you're just filling a very small section. Maybe you're playing around with, doing paints and gradients and watercolors or whatnot, and maybe using it as kind of like an art or creativity practice kind of notebook. I think that would be really fun. And it's a way to, give it new life, still kind of, make it approachable and make it user friendly for yourself, a little beginner friendly, because you're not expecting yourself to paint like an like A4 canvas or A3 canvas or something. You're just keeping it very small and can play around with a lot of different types and techniques in a space that feels a little safer.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I was showing off my little baby scramp journal to you earlier, but like this is a really great idea with like practicing in small spaces because I took so much out of our interview and chat that we had with Aaron. Like at first, obviously, if you all didn't watch that episode, I'm just like, I'm not a creative journaler, I'm not a creative planner, I can't do it. And then I started to get in my scramp journaling, and I was like, well, actually, I kind of am, but like, how do I take it to the next level? And so, like her giving me some of those tips has been helpful, but I still feel very overwhelmed by a large page in doing that. So I have found, like exactly like you said, containing it to a box, get out a ruler or maybe something that's like in the shape of a rectangle, right? And almost kind of like, I would say almost like you would use it for like a swatch journal. It's kind of like that idea space journal. So if you do want to play around with washi tapes or layering, containing yourself is such a good idea because if you don't want to necessarily have to buy a notebook because that's how we got in this whole situation in the first place by buying things we weren't quite sure how we were going to use it. This is a really great way to come back around onto it and do that, and it's just such a really nice way to constrain your creativity and not feel like you said like I've got to paint the ceiling of my apartment when I could just do a small little frame and feel really good about that small space.
Yeah, you can almost turn it into like a little creativity index. So if you're, really into line work and pattern or something, and you see a bunch of different ones online, where those little videos where people kind of draw it out for you and you can kind of follow along, you could kind of use it to practice those skills and kind of keep a record of those different types of patterns. So that then when you want to use it in something else, you can just flip back through your little creative index and see which ones you want to pull out and utilize in your project. I think that'd be a really fun use.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. That does feed into like my other idea too. It's a little bit of like constrained creativity, but it's also at the same time a scrapbook and a doodle book at the same time. But especially if you're into bullet journaling or creative planning or DIY planning and you're trying to think up ideas, I love creating like a research and development notebook. And we talk about this a lot. R&D journal, you hear us call it as well. It is a fantastic place to play, to experiment, to get out your pencil and your pen and kind of figure out what spacing looks like in the size notebook that you're already using. I think that's a very important part, unless you want to scale it appropriately. But having that notebook is super helpful. So I've used one, oh my goodness, probably since I started bullet journaling in the first place and started creating my own spreads as just a free space to kind of try it out before I take the pen, before I take the sticker, before I take the ink and get that into my actual bullet journal. I am not a person now that is like so hardcore into perfectionism when it comes into my journal. Like I make mistakes, ink gets all over the place, things happen. But I know it's deep breaths. But at the
Can't do
same
it. Can't do it.
but it's really nice and easy sometimes if you already have a layout that you've experimented with and sizing and figured that out in a different type of notebook that you can bring into your main notebook. I have a bunch, they're experimentation. They are not finished, many of them. Some of them I would never actually use inside of my own journal. It was just a fun place to kind of play and use different colors and use different, stationery that I had, but just wouldn't kind of fit into what I'm doing inside of my normal notebook. But that is the fun of it. I think that's really kind of the big moral of our story when we talk about reusing these notebooks is like it gives you this, you don't need the permission to do it, but it gives you the permission just to try things out and just sit downstairs and watch TV and take one pen and kind of create the outline of what you're thinking about without having to worry about, are the lines straight? Where's my ruler? I still take a ruler with me even when I'm using notebooks like that, right? But like, who cares if the lettering didn't turn out perfect? Like that gives you the practice that you need so that when you do go to put it inside of your notebook, you're like, two squares in between each letter versus one because the letter K looks kind of weird over here. It's just a really fun way to like approach journaling And again, you have this as a resource you can come back to so often.
No, I very much agree. Like pretty much every half-used notebook that I've ever had has turned into an R&D notebook. Like that has been their like, life's purpose in the end. That is where they have ended up. Like, all of those LT 1917s that I started using at one point and then decided the pages were too thin, they became R&D notebooks. A lot of my end of Tifosi or ANO ones or anything like that. I think that the nice part about turning a notebook into an R&D space is that it's also a really good way to utilize the end of a notebook that you've actually kind of used in full. You maybe have like 3 or 5 spreads left over at the end or something like that, and you can start to trial or test out how you're going to set up new layouts in your next one without actually putting pen to paper over there, especially because for a lot of us starting in a new plan or a new notebook can be just a little bit daunting, a little scary. I'm saying it like this, but like, yeah, for me too, okay? Like, this is why we go in with pencil first. But, if you're still trialing out, like, okay, oh, I want to like change my weekly structure or something, but I'm not too sure how it's going to work, you could make some kind of mock up versions of that in your R&D notebook to kind of get things looking how you want before you commit to having them in your actual planner. That can be a really nice use for it. I also think that it can be a really good way to collect ideas that you see online and give them kind of like a little like resting place, a little home in your collection, something that you've actually made and you can see it in physical form as opposed to just looking at a picture of it online. Because these people be taking these pictures, they've got a photography degree, I swear. Like, they're making it look so good. They've got the setup all looking beautiful. And then you're looking at this layout like, oh my God, it's gorgeous. And then you try and execute it yourself. I'm like, oh my God, it looks like crap. So, it gives you that opportunity to test and play and try before you do it yourself in your actual planner, especially if you're trying a different style of layout that you're not too sure if it's actually going to work for you. Because all too often I get, what's the planner version of your eyes are bigger than your stomach? I get that. For some of my layouts, it's like, you look at the layout, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then you start working on it and you realize how much work it's actually going to take to recreate the thing you saw online. You're like, oh no, I didn't sign up for this, but you actually did sign up for it. And now it's in your planner and now you're like half committed to it and you don't want to leave it half finished. So you're like, no, I'm going to spend 6 hours on this. Okay, maybe not. But like that kind of vibe, right? So gives you that opportunity to like test it out in a space that is a little more forgiving. If you get halfway through the project and you're like, no, actually, it's not for me, I'm not going to do that before you try and execute on it in your actual planner. I do find that that can be quite helpful.
Yeah, something I want to try next. Someone, when I was talking about doing my script journaling, told me that they're doing a screenshot journal. And I was like, excuse me? And they were like, yeah, all of those screenshots that I take, like to try to remind myself of whatever, I'm actually creating a journal for it because it's going to give it purpose. And then, like, I'm actually like recording it. It's not just getting lost in my camera roll. And I thought, like, that is a genius. And guess what? I'm going to be creating that in one of my R&D journals that like has the space because I don't know how it's going to work out just yet. And it is just like super fun. And the other thing I was going to say too, we talked about like using these notebooks as a resource. We've all been there where you are just like out of ideas, like nothing is inspiring you right now, like you're not quite sure what to do. I will open up some of these R&D journals and kind of flip through them, and whether it's a full completed idea or a part of an idea or something like that, it just kick starts me in a really nice way. Also, when Jess, before you were talking about like kind of contained creativity, think about that. Like, oh, I was playing with some sticker and paper layering on these pages. Okay, well, maybe a section of this weekly can look like that, and you already know that it's been successful, so you just have to recreate that. I'm sure we've got all the stationery that we use to get to that spot ready to go inside of a drawer somewhere, right? But like it's just easy to take those out and kind of put them into play. You have to remember to go back to them. I think that's one of the hard things that I'm learning now after having so many of them. Like I have a lot of R&D journals, a lot of journals that haven't been used or have like a handful of ideas in it. A lot of the times it's when I'm getting sent like a notebook or certain stationery, I'll create something in that, and then I'll realize that I love that notebook, maybe necessarily, and I have to skip 2 pages before I do my next one because the paper wasn't great. Like, that's where I'm just like, "Okay, well, I'm not going to use this as a potential journal for the future, but I'm not going to get rid of it, and I've already written in it, so I can't, like, resell it or give it away." But I know, Jess, you did mention when I was asking you about selling notebooks and stuff, like, you've used a few pages, but you do, like, glue them together before you, like, give them as a gift. I was curious, like, how people feel about that.
Yeah, I guess as long as you're really upfront about it, like you've told the person who's, looking to buy it or whatnot, hey, I have used a couple of the pages in here, and you kind of specify like either what they've been used for, like if it's a pen test in the back, it's say, okay, it's a pen test in the back, you could continue to use it for a pen test, or oh, I used like the first page or something, didn't like it, I've stuck it together, so it's not going to kind of impede your use or whatnot, or maybe if you've used a couple and you've removed them. I also find that like in selling on notebooks, typically if I'm getting rid of notebooks, I'll either just give them away or I'll price them to clear because I just don't want them in my house anymore. Because I've got enough. So I will usually take an even heavier discount on a notebook that's already been used. I don't sell on a lot of notebooks I've used just for the simple fact that I would prefer to be giving someone something that is completely 100% fresh. But for some of them, I'm like, I know I'm not going to use this. There is still so much of this notebook left because I've only used like one page or whatnot. As long as you're really upfront with people, most of the time they're usually pretty okay with it. It would just suck if you, I don't know, forgot that you'd used a page in it, sold it on to somebody, and then they get it and been like, hey, you like sold me something you've already tainted, kind of a thing.
I was thinking about that recently because I have some notebooks that do have like a few pages in them. And I was like, I don't know, should I give these to friends at work? Because like they love the stuff that I give them all the time. But it had a handful, and I was like, I don't know what to do here. And I did think, I was like, I could glue them together, but then that's also weird when you like open a new notebook and it's got like one really thick page, which is all of them glued together, and then the rest. But that's actually smart, just telling the person, like, hey, by the way, I glued those together because don't worry about it. It was just creative exploration, but you can have the rest in the notebook. A smart way to go about it. And good tips for everyone else too, because like you think that I would know this, but like that's a simple thing that I did not know.
I think it's one of those things, like, until you actually experience the situation, you wouldn't necessarily know what to do in the situation or what you would do in the situation. As somebody who has sold on quite a few notebooks or given away quite a few notebooks at this point, I'm pretty well practiced in it. I remember last time I did my big kind of notebook declutter and I went and sold on a bunch of them. I spent like 4 hours at the post office just trying to get them all sent out. I've decided, no, no, we're not doing that anymore. It's buyer must pick up. Sorry, if you live in Norway, you have to come all the way to New Zealand to get your notebook.
I mean, I'm sure there are some people who would love to visit you. They'd be like, I came all the way here to get this notebook. You're like, I'll stay for lunch. Let's go get some sushi.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. We'll have a great one with our notebooks, our new notebooks that haven't been lightly used at all. Because if you're coming all the way from Norway, I'm going to give you one that's fresh.
I'm gonna give you a bunch, honestly. Let's be honest, like all of the goodies. I don't know. I've been going through a lot of mine recently because I was trying. We've been cleaning out like our basement, and I had a bunch in there that were partially used. Probably used them for like pen tests, like you said, and everything else. And I was just like, I don't want to store them anymore. Like they need to come out of storage. But I already have an entire shelf that are filled with journals like this. So it's like this really hard spot where now I'm also just leaving them around the house, like downstairs, where the extra pens and pencils are in case someone needs to take a note. Or like I've just been like, sometimes, I mean, I have one like on my desk. Like the other day, I was like, I want to take a note, but not put it in a journal. And I just had this one that like I had some other stuff in, and I was like, oh, I'll just use this. It took every ounce of my being not to like create an index and like make a layout for it. I'm like, it is just for notes. It literally is for notes. Like having to like tell myself that it's okay that I don't do that. That's how like ingrained these methods are in my brain because I'm just so used to it. But it feels weird not to create an index for like note pages because I know that I'm gonna need to find them again in the future. And I feel like I should create an index. I should go back.
Just like sitting here, like, oh God, I can't let it live like that. It needs an index. Whereas I'm just like, no index for any notebook, never an index. Absolutely not.
All right, Jess, let's go into the final one for today's episode. Very excited to see how else you've used these unused, partially used notebooks for new ideas.
Yeah. So if I'm thinking mainly about a pre-printed planner and using it as a planner, maybe you found that that just isn't for you. Maybe the layout doesn't work, or there's just something about it that isn't quite right. One way that you can repurpose it, if you're not going to, pre-plan life or like plan things out before they happen, maybe you could use it for just like an after the fact type thing. And a lot of people will use a planner system actually more as a memory keeper, which I personally really love because, again, it's already dated, it's already got spaces set up for each of the days of the week or the month or whatever else. You can have like monthly snapshots of like a line a day, just like in a little box or something like that. You can have these weekly layouts that summarize what happened across the week. It could just be, an actual kind of memory keeper in terms of those big ticket items of what was happening, like events or happenings, appointments that had something exciting happen, hopefully positively exciting, who knows. It's your memories, you can keep whatever you want in there. Or it could just be kind of like a daily journaling type thing. It doesn't have to be memory keeping for those things that are really kind of special and big and huge. It could just be for the day to day, machinations of life. Is that a word that I used correctly? Again, not an English major. She doesn't know words, but it can be a really nice way to just like take the pressure off journaling in a sense, in that it's not this open ended thing. You do have a very finite amount of space, but you can just fill up as much of it as you want with any kind of memories from the day or things that are going on, thoughts or feelings. Oftentimes, when it comes to memory keeping for me, because my memory keeper is a 5 year journal that is like a DIY 5 year journal, it's really just like 3 lines a day for each day across a 5 year period. I leave it very open ended in terms of what I'm allowed to record. So that means that if there was nothing really particularly special happening on a day, there's still something that I can record because I would use like a bullet kind of system to indicate what type of information I'm recording. This is maybe like too into the technical, but we're talking about it anyways. So a little heart is some kind of like connection moment, like, time with friends, time with family, that kind of thing. A little smiley face is just a leisure activity. So something that I might have just done for myself, like, oh yeah, like I watched a TV show or like whatever. A little check mark, like a little tick, is to say that I had done something that was like an accomplishment or worked towards my goals. A little cross would be something that was challenging or hard for the day. A dot is just a regular happening, like, it doesn't really fit into any of the other categories. And a little exclamation point is like a milestone. So maybe I, fully accomplished a goal or something really special happened or something like that. It means that when I scan my eyes over the entries, I can kind of see the type of information I was recording for each of the days across this 5 year period. And you could do a really similar thing in repurposing a planner. Just make it really approachable, really simple. You don't have to record anything particularly special in there. It can just be like a practice of recording, like a very entry beginner friendly kind of way of doing journaling.
I love that. I think also with the memory keeping, I know I have a very like one track mind when it comes to memory keeping, and it's always like printing out photos of things that happen. It's probably like those big moments like you're talking about. Because what's great about those is that you just cover up the dates a lot of the times with those pictures, or if you're using different types of papers, or if it's not quite the right space for you, like we talked about those other kits that like convert planners into like other things and methods. It's just a really great way to cover up space, honestly. Like, I love that idea of it. I get very much, like I said, on one track mind where I'm like, it has to be something special. That's why my 5 year journal did not get used, because I was like, I'm gonna write in something every day, but like I just didn't feel like it was special enough to go in there, and I just kind of failed on it after restarting it 3 different times. But it just didn't work out. So I love the idea that you have there too about like different types of key elements that could potentially go in there, because I could totally see myself creating like a little like index or key for those things, and it would just make you think about it, like, oh, did I have a milestone moment today, or was something challenging today, or whatever the other ones might be that you create for yourself in there. It's like a really great idea, because it makes you actually sit down and reflect versus making you feel like it has to be something big and grandiose. So that's a really fantastic idea. You should do videos about planning and things like that. You're really good at it.
Oh my god, yeah, maybe I should. Maybe that could be like my new thing.
Milestone moment.
Milestone moment, I decided to start a planner channel, but I found that one of the things that was kind of missing when I initially started was thoughts and feelings kind of a thing. So I did actually end up adding a symbol, which was just dot, 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 because that's like usually how I think of a thought. It kind of just trails off into nowhere, because that's where most of my thoughts go, nowhere. But it means that like you don't necessarily have to record something that is a like a happening or an event. It can just be something internal. It's like, oh, I was feeling a little down today and I'm not really too sure why. Or oh, today like I was in a really like chipper mood and it meant I got a lot done or something. So it's just, recording more about like those little snippets of life. It doesn't have to be anything kind of like amazing or out of the box or like, crazy cool. It can just be like this is life.
I think mine would just turn into like, this is the fountain pen I bought today. This is the stationery I bought today. This is the new office tech I bought today. It'd be like Mark's purchase log and happiness because that makes me happy. I think that's what it comes down to. But I know I do love that idea. I think it's a really great way to go about it. I know for me personally, maybe this is a topic for another day. Like I have a hard time with thinking of like the daily journal, like people who are like, oh, I didn't get the journal today. I feel so lost without it. Like I feel weird for some reason like actually writing words in a journal like that, like my feel like a diary almost. Like I was never really into it. I recently found like a creative writing notebook from back in high school where we had to do like a daily exercise. It is like the most random things. I wrote a lot about Stacy because we were dating at the time in high school, so it was just like all stupid, whatever, and cutesy. But at the same time, I'm just like, well, could I do that now? And I still am like so bent on like it has to be something important. And then when something big does happen, like I don't have a place to put it. So like I just kind of put it in my bullet journal. Like not as anything, I mean I have so many stamps and little cutouts and things. I can just like pop it in there and make it into a thing. But the idea of like taking like another planner or something and just kind of journaling in it, like again, it's just because I have this like mental block on like what a journaling notebook kind of is. So again, like these are great ideas and I'm excited to hear from the planner pals too, because I don't know, I need help here because I love the idea. Like in my brain I already have like all the stamps for all of the keys, and I'm gonna have a little project box and I'm gonna do this same exact thing, and then I'm gonna never use it again. It's gonna be another repurposed journal after like my failed memory keeper didn't work, but I love the idea so much.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about making it a regular practice. It means that when you get to those kind of, more milestone moments, the things that are quite exciting or whatnot, you've already got the practice of journaling all of the mundane stuff that you're already well practiced in doing the journaling. So you do capture those memories. I find the hard part about capturing those kind of things in my everyday journal is that then they're just lost. Like I don't go back and look through my everyday journals. The only reason I would is because we're talking about it on a video or something and I want to like showcase a particular layout or something. So I've been very much thinking about not starting a new journal, but like maybe, but starting one that was just for those kind of like milestone memory keeping kind of moments. But then if I started it, would it be the kind of thing where I just wouldn't remember to go back and record in there? Is it also my preferred style of recording? Probably not. I'm more of a video recorder than I am a words and paper pen kind of recorder. So, but I'm still toying with the idea and I'm very intrigued by it.
Well, that's the great thing. We have empty notebooks or partially used that you could try the idea on. Even in mine, like I said, I have that one like traveler size that has four different ideas inside of it that I started and stopped. And it just is like this space where I'm like, I think I have an idea and I just go and grab for it versus creating like another journal where you're just like, oh, like I remember when we first started the podcast, I had a notebook that's still sitting over here and I like laid out every page. I had every page stamped. I was like, oh, meeting notes and all these things because I really thought like as we were talking, I was gonna be jotting down notes and blah blah blah. That didn't work out. I just had blank pages where I wrote the date that we recorded the podcast. Like that's what it became. And now I have a journal that is, probably, I don't know, 15 pages of that template that I made. And then I'm like, well, now I can grab that and turn that into something else. Like I know that I'm not going to use it. It's been sitting down there for the past few weeks, months, and it's just it needs another life because it's still a cool notebook. And that's the hard part too, when you have like the perfect notebook and you've been waiting to use it because the cover is so cool and you're just like, yep, this is it, I've been waiting this whole time to use this, and then like you don't, you're just like, well, now this notebook is going to go to waste, this beautiful cover. Like I need to keep it in my life somehow. So finding these different ways to reuse it, I think, is a really fantastic way to go about it because brings new life into those perfect journals we've been waiting forever to use.
Exactly, making sure that they can fulfill their destiny of actually getting used as opposed to getting half used and neglected, and then like you're sad and they're sad. And I'm not trying to personify inanimate objects here, but maybe I kind of am. Don't make your planners and notebooks weep, alrighty? Let them live their lives the way that they were intended to, which is getting used. But Planner Pals, we would love to hear from you. Have you repurposed a planner or notebook before, one that only got lightly used? If so, how did you repurpose it? Did you go and cut pages out of it like Jess does, or were you a little bit more particular and only put a little clip on it like Mark did. Let us know in the comments over on YouTube or on Spotify. Or if you don't want to go there, you can hit us up at planetofhousepodcast@gmail.com or over on Instagram at Planet of House Podcast.
Can't wait to hear all of your ideas, and we'll all be making our own like partially temporarily used notebooks in the very near future from those ideas. Until next time, Planner Pals, we'll talk to you later. See ya.